Well, one of the things we love to do is to have a pre-show poll so that those of you who join us early will have something to do while you're waiting on us to start. And Pam, what's our pre-show poll this week?
Happy to say we had over 400 folks sitting in queue, I guess, waiting to join us today, and so they participated. So here's our question. Which is more likely to get Biden's attention? Now, here are your choices, Gov. Vacation,
Okay.
The almighty dollar, ice cream, or a major disaster? What's your guess?
Ice cream or vacation.
Doggone it.
What?
Ice cream, yes. 45% of the audience said, out of the 403 that voted today, ice cream, 45%. Money, apparently, to get his attention to the tune of 38%, followed by vacation at 16%. A major disaster, 2. So there you go.
The reason I didn't put vacation, because he's always on vacation.
Fair
So
enough.
that didn't get his attention. I mean, he's on vacation most of the time. He'll finish one, he'll come back into the White House for half a day. Ooh, I'm exhausted. And then he'll go from Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, then he'll take off to somewhere out west. And now he's going to include Hawaii Monday. He's going to go out there because so many people were bugging him about it. I guess he feels like he has to. Well, our top comment from last week's live stream comes from Rooster Shooter 76. Here's his comment, quote, "I take zero comfort in any politician promising anything. I'll believe it when I see it." It's probably a really good way to look at life, because that's true. Now, we have a question for you this week. We'd love to get your answers, so start weighing in immediately on the comment section. Here's the question for you. Should Donald Trump be part of the debate next week in Milwaukee? Leave your answers in the chat or in the comment section below. And of course, remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like and share. Let people know that you're watching, and tell them that if they had good sense, they would be watching as well. That's what we would like for you to do, because we've asked it nicely, and I don't know how else to do it. Well, this week has been controversial for Joe Biden, in part because every time the press tries to talk to him about this humongous disaster in Maui, and it is just awful, largest number of deaths in a wildfire we've ever had, I think, ever in our history. Count is 111 and growing, and there are thousands of people unaccounted for. This past week, when reporters were shouting out questions, this is Joe's response.
Milwaukee, sir, your trip to Milwaukee. Are you going to talk?
No, he's not going to talk. There he goes. And they were trying to get him to make some comment about the situation in Maui. Nothing. In fact, earlier in the week, when asked about it, he just said no comment. And then when he finally announced that he would go to Hawaii, because there was so much pressure, even from Democrats, about that he needed to go and show some sympathy. After all, he is Mr. Empathy, The reporters asked him, "Tell us about your trip to Hawaii." His answer here is just epic.
Can you tell us about your Hawaii trip, sir?
No, not now. I'm going to be leaving. I'll be there on Monday.
Why is it important that you go?
Thank you.
Sir, on the family issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
I wonder who the reporter is that says, "Thank you, Mr. President." Thank him for what? He stiffed him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like getting hit by a coach with a paddle from a boat that has holes in it, and you get your rear end whacked, and you're supposed to say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another one?" That used to be the sadistic treatment we would get in gym class when I was in school. Couldn't do that today. Somebody would get sued, fired, probably imprisoned for that kind of stuff. Everyday routine when I was in school. Been a long time ago. But if we did say, "Thank you, coach, may I have another," we weren't sincere. We certainly didn't mean it, because we didn't want another one. And sometimes he would say, "Sure, you can have another." And we'd get another. I didn't care for it. Now, you've just seen Joe Biden in action, showing how much he cares. Karine Jean-Pierre trots to the White House podium, and she tries to tell us he does care a lot.
see the president, if you know this president, you know how much he cares about people. You know how much he cares about folks who have lost so much. You have covered him, Phil. You know how he deals with these types of unfortunate situations.
Right.
Yeah, we do know. We've seen it. He stiffs the whole thing. It's like he still hasn't been to East Palestine in Ohio, where they had that train wreck and all these people's homes are worth nothing. And he said he would go and check on them. He hasn't. That's been a year and a half.
Right.
I think a year and a half. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
And I mean, it's just, once again, dereliction of duty. You know, I heard him try to pretend that, well, I don't want to go and get in the way. And that's an excuse. Let me tell you something. A president or a governor in the midst of a tragedy is not in the way, because those are carefully planned and they know where they can and can't go that won't be utterly disruptive. It is important to go. And the reason that it's important to go is because you identify with the problems people are having. The entire press corps shows up with you, so they keep attention on people that are in desperate need for assistance. And quite frankly, seeing a disaster firsthand makes you much more compassionate toward the people who are experiencing it, and you begin to move resources and assets to those areas. It's just the way it works. Let me be very fair in this. This is not an issue where Democrats are worse than Republicans or vice versa. It goes with the individual. One of the best people that I've seen in public office respond to disasters was Bill Clinton. He would be there. He would be there quickly. He would be there very intentionally. He would not be in a big hurry. He would care for people and truly show a level of compassion. Again, I'll be fair. He was much better at that than George Bush was. Much better. There was a authenticity to his compassion in those settings. And I walked through many a mile of tornado aftermath with both presidents, and Bill Clinton had no equal when it came to getting there as quickly as possible and doing everything that he and his administration could to help people.
And certainly the people themselves, when a governor or a president shows up in their backyard, in that moment, the emotive piece of that, and see them caring for them, it just changes things.
It truly does.
Yes.
And when they had the big tornado this spring in Arkansas, devastating, deadly, one of the few times I've called my daughter in advance and I said, don't wait till you're asked to get there. Get there as quickly. And she went into those neighborhoods, and there were many people who would just come up, hardcore Democrats who didn't vote for her, but hugged her because they truly appreciated that she was there. And that's what you really are showing.
Well, they want to know that someone is hearing them and seeing them and took a beat. And the important thing you said about President Clinton, listening.
Yeah.
Listening to the people.
It truly matters. So this nonsense that Joe says, oh, I don't want to get in the way. It's not that you're going to get in the way. It's that not being there is a dereliction of duty to show these people that the entire country will mobilize to show them some level of sympathy and concern. Now, here's something that got an enormous amount of brushback from people across the political spectrum, Democrats and Republicans alike. Joe Biden announced that there would be a $700 per household one-time payment to the victims of the Maui disaster. Here's what he did in the same 24-hour period. He announced $40 billion of aid going to Ukraine. Watch first his announcement of the aid to Maui.
We've also authorized one-time payments of $700 per household to folks who've been displaced, so they can do the immediate things of just taking care of medications and prescriptions that they so badly need.
$700 won't buy a single night's hotel room in Maui for most hotels there. So, I mean, it's better than nothing. But now let's contrast that with what he has proposed that very same day to do for Ukraine. $40 billion, big chunk of it to go to Ukraine. And that's a whole issue separate than this. But it just seemed a little bit maybe mismatched that on one hand, all right, you folks that had everything you owned burned down, $700 one time. You people over in Ukraine, $40 billion.
Yeah.
Knock yourselves out.
Yeah, and how long is that $700 going to last?
Well,
Reality.
a day, a couple of days,
Yeah.
not long. So it's quite a mess. One of the things that I am just stunned by is Joe Biden, in one of his more angry moments, is trying to defend the pullout of Afghanistan. And that it was 2 years ago. And it was just horrific, poorly planned, even worse, executed in the most hideous way. And here he is defending how great a job he did.
Name me a single objective we've ever set out to accomplish that we've failed on. Name me one in all of our history. Not one.
Name me one. Here's some, Joe. Let's try the southern border. Let's try inflation. Let's try taxation. Let's try dealing with the whole Ukraine-Russian situation. Let's try you not being accountable for all the $20+ million that flowed into your family from foreign governments, including China, Ukraine, and Russia. And how did you get that money? What did you do to earn it? What did Hunter do to earn his piece of it? So when you say, name me one, there's several. And I could come up with more if we only had the time. John Kirby, who is the spokesperson for the National Security Council, I'd hate to have his job trotting out there trying to pretend that everything was just wonderful in our exit from Afghanistan. But this may be one of the most disgusting responses to a botched operation that I've ever heard. A person proud of something they should have been ashamed of.
And so for all this talk of chaos, I just didn't see it, not from my perch. At one point during the evacuation, there was an aircraft taking off full of people, Americans and Afghans alike, every 48 minutes. And not one single mission was missed. So I'm sorry, I just won't buy the whole argument of chaos.
Oh, I love that phrase, from my perch. Well, that's the problem, John. You were on a perch rather than down there where it was happening, where 13 Marines got killed. This was a clip, by the way, from April, where John Kirby was defending all of this. And he talked about the planes taking off full of Afghanistans. What he didn't show you was the video of the people who were hanging on to the outside of the plane, trying to get on to get escaped, and they fell off the planes and were killed. That didn't look too pretty, and it wasn't that well organized. It was an absolute disaster. Do we have some responsibility for what's going on there? Well, some of our military people who have been there certainly feel that way, and they did not see from their perch things going so well. Watch.
What do you think are left of our allies, people that we should be getting out? How many are left?
Thousands. I mean, we still have safe houses that we're trying to keep people in and out of. There's still thousands of special operations commandos that are trying to find ways out. It is dire. It is heartbreaking, and we have to do something.
I was on a flight to Israel a week or so ago, and one of the movies that I was able to watch was the movie The Covenant. It just came out recently. And it is about, it's a fiction, but based on the fact of a soldier who was rescued by his Afghanistani translator. And he was promised that this translator and his family would be able to get out, come to the U.S. Well, the promise was broken to them, and these people were running for their lives. He went back as a private citizen and went and found that translator and arranged for safe passage for them. It's a wonderful film. It really is, very powerful. But I thought it did such a great job of showing the emotion of the soldier who knew that he had his life. He was able to go back to his family only because of the heroism of his translator. And the covenant was that this person had done this for him. He was morally bound to do it for the translator at the risk of his own life. Great movie. I highly recommend it. If we've not said it enough, we'll do it again. Subscribe to the channel right now. Hit the notification bell, like and share so that more people can be a part of what we're doing. Let's take a few questions from our audience and we'll pick it up from there.
All right, so I'm going to start with Mitchell Ryan. He's a Super Chat, so he got pushed to the top of the list. So that's what happens when you participate in the Super Chat. Will Trump be able to appeal his predetermined conviction?
I think he will. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV. But people who are very good lawyers, Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley and some others, believe that his case is very much appealable even before he goes to trial, that he could appeal all the way to the Supreme Court, because this is unprecedented legal action against a former U.S. president. And the fact that it is being brought by the police agency of his opponent in the race is what makes this really smell to high heaven. So Joe Biden is running against Donald Trump at this point. And Joe Biden unleashes all of the federal police agencies loose to go get Trump, charge him with any and everything they can, 91 charges, 4 different indictments spread across several states. And they all believe that this is so unprecedented that it needs to bubble up to the Supreme Court as to whether the timing of this and even the charges being brought are legitimate.
Okay. Wesley Wegley. Now I'm going to read this exactly as it came in today, Governor.
Okay.
So listen carefully. Just a quick question. I am in no way saying this will happen. What would happen to the Biden investigation if he did not wake up tomorrow morning?
It probably would go away. I mean, just realistically, because I don't know what there would be gained by pursuing it other than to establish something that may have happened. Whether or not anyone would pursue that is a guess bigger than mine. But I'm guessing that in that event, the entire issue would be moot.
All right, thank you. Dieta Janice is telling us today, commenting, the Oversight Committee has to figure out how to get rid of Biden and Harris. If they can get both out of office, who would be in line to take control until the next election?
Actually, it would be Kevin McCarthy, because in the line of succession, if something happens to the president and the vice president, it would be the Speaker of the House. Now, I'm doubtful that anything would happen prior to the 2024 election unless the evidence becomes overwhelming. And it may become overwhelming. I mean, we're seeing some pretty big stuff come down. By the way, James Comer is going to be our guest on the Huckabee Show this weekend, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, a must-see edition of our show. I've been saying for several weeks that Congress needs to start the impeachment inquiry, but not the impeachment articles. There are some members of Congress who are wanting right now to go and impeach him. Let me tell you why it's a terrible idea. You can do it. You might, not sure you would, but you probably could get a vote of impeachment in the House because it's majority Republican. But you may have some Republicans who don't. If you don't get the impeachment, it looks like a colossal fail. Yeah. But if you do get it, it'll be a very partisan. All the Democrats will vote no, all the Republicans will vote yes. It'll go to the Senate and die in less than 5 minutes. They won't even have time to read it good, and it's over because the Democrats control the Senate. And when that happens, Joe comes out and says, I'm exonerated, I'm vindicated, I'm innocent. And the media will jump on that and say the Republicans were bad guys. Nevertheless, that's exactly what they did to Trump. Trump didn't get convicted of anything in the Senate. And you know, it became really a non-issue. So if the point is to establish the truth, that's not the way you go about it. Got to be careful, methodical, patient. And I know patience is not a virtue in politics. We want our revenge and we want it now, but that's not smart. You've got to play this for the long game, not the short game. In the short game, run in there and impeach him, let it die in the Senate, it's all over, and Joe Biden gets reelected. The long game, let this information that people like James Comer are continuing to develop, dribble it out, make it so overwhelming that nobody can ignore it, and then even some Democrats will say, I can't keep defending Joe Biden for this. That's when the turn will happen. Let's take another one before we get to that.
Catherine Foxworthy asking this afternoon, Governor, if Biden and Harris are out of the way, do you think that Gavin Newsom will be a possibility? If so, how do we educate voters about the disastrous path that he and his legislators have taken California down?
I think Newsom would be dancing all over the streets if something happened to both of them and they pulled out, because he desperately wants to run. But there would be some other Democrats who would too, and they no doubt would point out some of these problems with California. Although, here's what I don't understand. California had a chance to recall Gavin Newsom, and they should have. It was right in this aftermath of all of his COVID hypocrisies and the just elitism that he had pushed around in California. And they voted to keep the guy.
Yeah.
So I don't understand voters who would do that. I just don't. We're going to go to this defense of Bidenomics, which has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've heard. But Brian Deese, who is a former White House economic advisor, gives us a real explanation as to why people ought to be supporting Bidenomics.
Polls, the American public, almost half of them don't feel like the economy is going well. What do you, I know you're focused on the policy side, always have been, but you're a politically savvy guy too. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
The economic anxiety that people feel has been years and decades in the making as well. And so people naturally are hesitant to accept when they see progress on the horizon. They want to know, is that progress going to continue?
Basically, people are stupid and they don't really see what a wonderful economic situation they're in, even though everything is costing more and they've lost significant amount of their income. I'm just amazed these people say this stuff. But here's the thing, they get away with it because nobody in the press is going to call them out and challenge them. Chuck Schumer was on MSNBC on the Morning Joke. That's what I call it, Morning Joe, but I call it the Morning Joke. And he also defends Bidenomics as if it's just something we ought to be standing up and cheering.
Economy is doing so well, and it's in good part because of the work we in the Senate and the president did over the last summer. Really?
Gee, Chuck, that's news to all of us, because when we look at some economic facts, as pointed out, in many commentaries, here's what we find. Prices are up almost 17% since Joe Biden took office. Real wages are down by 3%. So if you put that together, the prices are up and wages are down. That's a rough 20% switch, which means people's actual capacity of money is 20% less than it was when he took office. Nationwide average for regular gas is up $1.48 since Biden took office. Americans have paid $2,250 more in increased energy costs since Biden came into office. And American savings, real incomes, and economic confidence all down. Now, here's another one. Household spending, $709 more a month than 2 years ago for the same goods and services. Add that up, and we're talking over $8,000 a year for the typical American family that you are underwater. And unless you got an $8,500 a year raise this past year, you are losing ground thanks to Bidenomics. So this guy, Deese, says, oh, yeah, it's great. Chuck Schumer says, it's terrific. We've done such a good job. I ask you, who are watching today, are you just giddy with excitement over what Bidenomics has done to your pocketbook? My guess is you're not. I just can't imagine that you would be. All right, let's take a couple of questions.
Sure. Southern Cal tattooed biker writes today, we've spent so much on Ukraine. I want to know if he's getting kickbacks for the government of Ukraine. Let's take care of Americans before we continue to support other countries.
It's a very valid argument. I understand that some aid to Ukraine may be helpful to the U.S. for our strategic interests, because if Russia is able to go in and take Ukraine and there is no real resistance and no pushback from the other nations, Putin's going to be emboldened and he'll do it other places. So that's the strategic reason. But there's a limit. We can't do it by ourselves. And we need to put Americans first. We just do, because Americans are the ones paying the taxes. We're citizens. Our government's primary responsibility is to its own citizens. And I think sometimes we get that really, really mixed up.
We have a super chat today, just a simple donation, if you will, Vicky DeFord. So we thank her for participating with us this afternoon. All right, here's a comment and a question from Leona McCarroll. Zero confidence, zero all caps, by the way, confidence in our current administration. How did we get to this point?
We got to this point because you have a monolithic media that has told us lie after lie after lie. And when politicians tell lies, they cover for the Democrats. And even when a Republican tells the truth, they call it a lie. That's part of it. And the other part is our government has weaponized all of the alphabet agencies, the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, and they're using the powers of those agencies to crush the opposition. And that is how we end up with the Joe Biden. And it's very, very disturbing.
Sherry Palmer today is asking, do you think that President Trump will trump all these charges?
It's hard to say. I think he will lose at the local level in some of these jurisdictions, like in D.C., where 95% of the jury pool voted for Biden and against him. Probably the same in Fulton County, Georgia. If they go to trial, he's not going to get a fair trial. But I think he has an excellent chance, a very strong chance of having all of it thrown out on appeal. And so that's what we have to kind of hope for. I want to get to a couple of things. We're running out of time. And we're going to say to you that you see these climate protesters who block traffic. They get in front of cars and they won't let traffic go through. These are people trying to go to work and get their kids to school. But these people who are so much better than the rest of us sit down in the road and block traffic. Well, one guy had an idea. I'm not saying this is the ideal and may not be the way we should handle it, but it does show you the frustration that sometimes people have with these jerks who believe that they're just more important than the people who are out there working or taking their kids to school. Notice he didn't run over the guy. He just blew the exhaust and basically knocked him down with it with his beamer. So, good work, dude. But I can't say that.
You can't say that.
Not officially. No, not at all. If you have been keeping up with anything, you've probably heard of Oliver Anthony. He is just a guy living off the grid. He's a farmer in Virginia, and he's amateur singer-songwriter. He's got the #1 song in the world right now called Rich Men North of Richmond. Kind of a nice play on words. Basically, this is a blue-collar anthem decrying the situation that hardworking people have in this country. It lit a fire, and it has gone viral to the nth degree. He's a passionate and creative singer, and I think we have a little clip of his song, that which we can play because some of the words were, well, it had some profanity. We wouldn't use that, but I can understand his passion.
Rich man north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men north of Richmond.
And that's it, Rich Man North of Richmond. And interestingly, this is just a guy and a guitar out in the middle of a field with 3 dogs sitting there watching patiently. But it's the passion of his song. The words are powerful, but he sings it from the heart, from the gut. This is not just a guy singing casually a song. You can tell this is coming from his bones. And people connected to it in a very, very powerful way. Kind of an exciting thing to see that, you know, a guy that didn't have any connections, didn't have a recording contract, didn't have a manager, had nothing. He puts this on YouTube, and the next thing, he's the #1 deal in the world.
And maybe representing a piece of the country that hasn't been able to present itself, but this guy has now become maybe the brand image, if you will, for that that thought, if you will.
And I find that refreshing.
Yes, it
I
is.
truly do. I also find it refreshing that you have joined us today, and we hope that you have had a great time. I mentioned earlier, James Comer, Congressman from Kentucky, is going to be our guest on the Huckabee Show. In the meantime, be sure to leave your questions in the comments section. We'll continue to read them even after the live stream. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and be sure to click the notification bell.